Hello and welcome to Rajat TV. You're watching discussion today with the host Rajat Kain. In this edition of the show, we'll talk about cryptocurrencies and the road ahead. The government is working to bring in a legislation governing the bitcoins and cryptocurrency, which is also referred to as virtual currencies. The use of cryptocurrencies as legal tender or currency is currently banned, but will that change after legislation is brought on the same? Also, what will happen to any holding in the cryptocurrency by an Indian investor? To discuss more on this and, of course, more about the cryptocurrency, we're joined with a panel of two extremely important guests. Many thanks for joining us, Mr. Sharan Nair. He is Chief Business Officer, CoinSwitch Kuber. And, of course, we joined with Mr. Vikram Rangala, member IAMAI. And he is also the CMO of ZebPay. Well, let me start with you, Mr. Vikram Rangala. Many thanks for joining us. Now, the concept of cryptocurrency or the virtual currency, bitcoins, is still very nascent. Not many people know about it. So, for the benefit of our viewers, could you explain as to what these cryptocurrencies stand for?
Hi, Rajat. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, we prefer the term crypto assets because though it is sometimes said that they could be used in place of currencies, that's only a hypothetical kind of a statement. Really, they are assets for the store of value, and they can be used to transfer that value electronically. But none of us in the crypto industry in India or even globally is talking about trying to replace legal tender or compete with that. Instead, you can think of it like digital gold. It's created by a software that runs on a decentralized network that's on thousands of computers all around the world.
Okay.
This software, among other things, allows for transparent accounting. It involves what's called triple entry bookkeeping, in which every transaction is accounted for with a cryptographic function that verifies by having thousands and thousands of computers simultaneously verify that the transaction is true and real, and that if I send you one Bitcoin or 1/100th of a Bitcoin,
Okay.
it takes now thousands and thousands of people all saying simultaneously, yes, Vikram did send Rajat that 1/100th of Bitcoin and no one else. And so it allows for an unprecedented security against corruption, against fraud, against trying to alter the books to hide transactions, anything like that. So it fights corruption. Another thing that Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies also do is to fight inflation by maintaining a fixed supply. The total number of Bitcoins that can ever be produced is 21 million. Nearly all of them have already been generated by the software. And so like gold, which every year gold mines around the world are working, but they are adding less than 1% to the total gold supply. So because of that, there's no way to suddenly print a whole lot of new gold. There's no way to suddenly print a whole lot of new Bitcoins that could result in inflation. So as a hedge against inflation, it's very similar to gold in its properties, except that you can send it from one phone to another. So really, those are the kind of functions, among other things, that we're talking about. It's an asset that allows us to fight inflation, to store value for the long term in a way that will not get reduced or eroded due to changes in interest rates or long-term inflation and that reduction. And it allows for a new and better form of accounting that lets you resist corruption.
Right. Many thanks, Vikram Rangala, for explaining or at least giving preliminary information about these assets. Now, Sharan Nair, let's work on let's understand the context under which these cryptocurrencies are banned by the government of India to be used in transaction in Indian territory.
Right. So the Indian government currently feels that cryptocurrencies might possess as a threat to the national security. It could lead into money laundering and things like that. But to be honest, cryptocurrencies do the exact opposite.
Okay.
Right. So cryptocurrencies actually makes your country way more secure because now people are not able to do fraud in the system primarily because of the blockchain ledger, right? And on top of that, cryptocurrencies in a way, help government to have more accountability in what is going on in the system, right? So that's the part that most governments don't understand, and that's the part that we exchanges and folks together are coming together to explain to the government.
Right, right. Mr. Nair, that's really important information, of course. Like, yeah, at the same point, let us also examine how these currencies, or rather these assets, are valued. Does government have any control, or for that matter, intervention of any financial institution in terms of valuing these assets? I'll start with you, Mr. Nair, then I'll go to Mr. Rangala. So could you explain as to how these are valued? And is it a bone of contention?
As of today, it's completely valued on the basis of the supply and demand, right? Like, so the more people understand the technology, the more people understand that it's the future, the more people want to get associated with it. And pure supply and demand economics flows in, and then the price starts going up because more people now want to be part of the system. So it's not controlled, the prices are not controlled by any centralized authority or government.
Okay.
It's a free flow market.
Okay, okay. Mr. Rangala, here is this is what I want to understand here. Now, any currency per se, by definition, it's usually an object, or to say an instrument of exchange that is controlled, or for that matter, that is defined by any financial institution of the country. But here in this case, as Mr. Nair also pointed out, it's based on demand and supply, more of a barter. So does it add to any contention?
See, like what Mr. Vikram had pointed out earlier, right? Nobody's really treating cryptocurrencies as a currency today, right? It's mostly an asset class, right? Like what you rightly mentioned, is a hypothetical use case of a currency. But what everyone needs to look at is from a digital gold standpoint, right? So if you understand gold, then you could just take that example and put it on cryptocurrency, and the fact that it's way easy to transfer between two parties, unlike physical gold. So the whole idea, or the whole argument around currency and using cryptocurrencies as a currency doesn't really stand good.
Okay, okay. Mr. Rangala, like, here, I mean, I want, like, I was asking for your opinion in that question of mine. I mean, as to, like, since cryptocurrency is not defined in terms of its asset value by any financial institution, so does it add to any bone of contention as to why it's yet not in circulation here? Mr. Rangala?
Well, it's not meant to be circulated as a currency.
Okay.
I mean, you can say that it's based on pure supply and demand, but I want to make clear that assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum, they're not based on nothing. They're not instruments for just gambling on the price up and down. By buying the token, you are investing in the technology. So people who are buying Bitcoin or buying Ethereum, which is like a decentralized global computer for building large-scale applications for all kinds of things, like decentralized ways to provide greater accountability in insurance or in lending, or even in distribution of energy. People believe in this technology. A blockchain, in order to function, has to have a crypto token, a virtual token that powers the blockchain, essentially. So when people are buying the token, they're investing in the technology that backs it. That's not to say there aren't some cryptocurrencies that were created pretty much just for speculating on the price.
Okay.
And short-term speculation is going to be part of the interest that some people have. But that's not the reason why long-term investors, people like Elon Musk, companies like MasterCard are investing in Bitcoin. They see the technology itself as being a breakthrough, which it is. It's a revolutionary technology that's going to improve accountability, improve transparency, and provide an inflation-proof hedge. So that's the reason. And again, nobody's talking about replacing dollars or rupees or euros with Bitcoins.
Absolutely.
Maybe there are a few sort of anarchists or libertarians out there who write blog posts and are fantasizing about this someday. But in practical terms, that's all it is. It's an interesting hypothetical question that, we can have discussions with over chai, but nobody's planning to do that. And we're certainly not, there's just no way to do that in the next 100 years or more. So, yeah.
We're looking ahead at it, and the government of India wants to bring in, or rather it's working on the legislation on governing the cryptocurrency. What scenario do you envisage vis-a-vis cryptocurrency and its use in near future if it's brought under the ambit of any legislation, Mr. Rangala?
Well, one thing for sure is, see, I think we, the exchanges and other companies in the Indian crypto space, share two values with the government. One is we want to promote innovation. The other is we want to protect consumers. To the second end, we practice rigorous KYC and anti-money laundering practices. And we've been self-regulating since 2014. And we've interfaced with law enforcement on many occasions, explaining things, helping with investigations, helping to prosecute people. And so our self-regulation can actually be a model for eventual national regulations, which we are all eager to see. So if we can provide that kind of KYC, know your customer, so that we can track and verify that it's not some cocaine dealer trying to make a deal for weapons using Bitcoin. Now, another fact that people should recognize is less than 1% of all Bitcoin transactions are used for illicit activity. Over 99% of the people who are using Bitcoin and 99% of the transactions are for legitimate purposes. So, and yes, you can barter with them. The same way I could exchange my shares of some stock for your shares in something else, we could arrange for some transfer. Or I could trade you my motorcycle for your car if I felt like it. We can do those kind of things. That is essentially what crypto assets should be left as. You shouldn't be able to pay your taxes in it, where nobody's really calling for, substituting that, those kind of functions, which are legitimate functions, for which in the foreseeable future, we need the government. But this can actually be an aid to the government, because if you have proper KYC, and then if you have a technology like blockchain, where every Bitcoin transaction that has ever been made is publicly available, you can go to a website and actually look it up and see which address it went to from which address. You can't see the name of the person.
Okay.
But with KYC, you can look it up and see which exchange, and connect the names. It does provide a tool for law enforcement. There's also privacy protections. You can know that I made a Bitcoin transaction, but you needn't know what my, father's name was, or what kind of house I live in, or, where I went to college, or any of those other details. Right now, data privacy is a huge issue, and people are having their data just sort of taken away and sold to them. So this could provide some rigor, some discipline, and some accountability even in that area. So as I said, crypto assets and legal currency can live side by side in this economy. They don't really, nobody really intends for them to overlap. And so the regulation should, basically, if you treated it like gold that you can send over a wireless signal, the regulation would kind of be easy to write in those terms.
Right. Sharan, as we're discussing about the legislation that is still under works, and we perhaps may soon see some sort of legislation governing the cryptocurrency. So once legislation is there, we still don't know the broad frameworks of it, but as somebody, as an expert of the cryptocurrency, what sort of frameworks, if at all, you'd like to say about cryptocurrency, or in terms of, as Mr. Rangala, Vikram Rangala was explaining to us, there are lots of checks and balances in terms of data privacy, in terms of transaction or scope, and also in terms of the self-regulation. So is that enough so far, or you would see a larger framework of regulations in time to come? Sharan.
Yeah, sure. So I think once if there's supposed to be a regulation that's coming out, and the way we would like to see it is that cryptocurrencies get classified under at least one category so that we very well know how to treat it, right? Then government can come on top of that and build taxation and those things that could add added revenue to the government. In terms of data protection and privacy, like how Mr. Vikram pointed out, that all exchanges have rigorous methods of putting those checks in place. In fact, when the first exchanges that started in 2013 to 14, were doing the standard practices of collecting consumer documents, we're making sure that money was always, every time a customer tries to buy cryptocurrency, the money is always coming from their own bank account, and it's always sold and sent to their own bank accounts. All these checks were extremely rigorous. Sometimes these checks were way more rigorous than the checks that you would see on normal banking platforms, because we had to make sure that we were doing everything right and we didn't have a scope of making a mistake. Right. On top of that, the exchanges would love to work with the government to build a regulatory sandbox where we work together and understand the nuances of the business and see what are the major concerns that the government might have and how can we address those concerns. So it's if you ask me today, like what are the solid regulations that should come around, it's a little difficult to say that because there are genuine concerns at the end of the government as well. So it only makes sense that the first step is that the government sits together with all stakeholders, which right now doesn't seem to be happening. But if it does, it's a great thing that we all sit together and then we address the concerns and we together figure out a way how to make it happen. But banning the financial internet, aka crypto, doesn't really make sense without really understanding the nuances of it.
Right. So understanding of nuances is important, Sharan. That's well said. Let me just have one more question from. Let me pick your thought on one thing. In terms of the road ahead, Vikram, what do you see how the cryptocurrency would add to the market and, of course, like the valuation of the ones who are investing into it? If this currency is, I know it's not a physical form, but in terms of the virtual currency, how will it help in more transaction and barter?
Well, it's a store of value, first of all. So the same way people take the value that they generate through their hard work, their creativity, their innovation, and put it into a store of value like gold or investing in shares or in real estate, it would provide one more way for them to do so for the long term. But beyond just this additional asset class that's brought to the market is the much larger innovation of blockchain itself. Blockchain is powered by crypto assets, by crypto tokens. And so you can't really have one without the other. But blockchain could bring innovation for financial inclusion, for new ways for the poor to get access to low-cost credit, for greater ease of securing and proving your identity, of access to health insurance. There's pretty much no area of life that blockchain cannot have some innovation and some contribution to. And Indians are already innovating in the blockchain field, including at Tesla and MasterCard. I mean, the CEO of MasterCard is an Indian, CEO of Microsoft is an Indian. You know, if Indians abroad are already in the forefront of innovating in blockchain, then Indians certainly here can do the same thing and ought to be able to. So yes, crypto assets can be a great new asset class for investors. They also should be easily available to the average person, the person who drives an auto rickshaw or cleans homes or works construction and wants a way to save their money. If they can take just 5% of their savings and put it into Bitcoin, just every week, like an SIP, buy a little bit, 100 rupees maybe of Bitcoin every week or every month. In 10 years, in 20 years, when their children are ready to go to college, when their grandchildren are coming up, or they need to have money for retirement, if they've been, instead of spending it on snacks or, God forbid, cigarettes or something else, if they've been putting it into an asset like Bitcoin that's inflation proof, think of the life transforming effect that could have on ordinary people. So at ZebPay, our mission is not to make rich people richer or to give them one more way to, become a new kind of billionaire.
Right.
We are really about helping every Indian have access to Bitcoin, Ether, and to the technology behind them. Because if people can learn to save and save for the long term, and then just 20 years later, look and see where their Bitcoin has gotten them and the difference it's made in their lives, it could be transforming to the economy. Because first of all, you're promoting savings, and you're promoting savings in something that's so easy to do. Anybody with a smartphone can access it. Even if a bank won't talk to you, even if you can't qualify for a certain kind of a loan, blockchain can reduce the costs of providing finance to people, microfinance included. So all of these technologies, they're being developed. They're going to be available in other countries. India right now owns less than 1% of the world's Bitcoin. Other countries are already, we call it a Bitcoin gap. So I hope that the way forward includes not just making Bitcoin available to every Indian, but also I hope the RBI will consider adding it as a reserve asset for the country itself.
Well, that's important, Mr. Rangala, and it's an important hypothesis, as you said, that you see or you want to see the Bitcoin reaching the last of the Indian. Well, Sharan, here is my question. Now, of course, it's for any new technology or any new ware in terms of a system, be it markets, be it money circulation, it's good that that substance is brought to the last person of the country. Now here, what sort of challenges it'll see in itself reaching the last of the person, or for that matter, by expanding its reach? Will there be an interface or a market? Will there be accessibility issue for cryptocurrency in days to come if you want to expand its reach? In condition like it's not banned then.
Right. I think it's fairly not that difficult, considering the fact that, like what Mr. Vikram just showed, right? You can use it, just cell phone is all you need to get connected to the system. And cell phone prices are getting cheaper. India's, thanks to Jio, some of the cheapest internets that's running in the world right now. So I don't think reaching to the last mile is an issue here. But what's a major issue that I feel is the fact that people are not educated enough or not aware enough about the technology, right? Even today, a lot of investors, a small percentage of investors do not really understand cryptocurrencies. So what really needs to happen, most importantly, is educate. Right? Education needs to go out to the policymakers, because it's a complex subject. It's completely a revolution. It's redefining money 2.0. It's really important that everybody understands what it is. That's the first thing that needs to be done. Right. Once that is done, then you need to put proper checks in places to ensure that the last person is not scammed or robbed or runs into trouble because of the system. Right. So basically, customer data, how do you prevent or protect against fraud and things like that?
Well, Sharan, here is an important point here. That, just as we are about to wrap up the show, just in 1 minute, if you can explain it to us, safeguard for the investors. Yeah.
Sorry, for some reason I'm lagging.
Yeah, Sharan, I'm asking, as you said, there is a technology, there are cell phones, you can transact on the cell phone for use of or transaction of the Bitcoins or virtual currencies. What about safeguards for the investors? Are there a minimum possible safeguards that this is the minimum amount that is safe here? Or it's all speculation, considering it's not driven by an organized market, rather it's driven more by demand and supply?
It's technically, to be honest, when people are buying crypto tokens, right, they're just not speculating, right? They're betting on the technology, and the technology is definitely going places, right? Now, if you look at a token like Ethereum, now the kind of stuff that Ethereum has built on top of its blockchain with decentralized finance and things are going to change the way we look at banking. So the value of Ethereum token should ideally go to zero if this entire system collapses, which to me seems to be fairly impossible. Right? It's like you're expecting the internet to collapse and then the whole internet companies' stock values to go zero.
Okay. Right. Mr. Rangala, to you, just as we are wrapping up the show, last 1 minute. Again, I'm saying the same thing. Safeguards for the investors, as this industry, or to say this asset is still new, still nascent. Not many people in India know about it. And of course, we don't know if in near future it won't be banned at all.
Well, leaving the ban question aside,
absolutely,
the way to safeguard your investment is, first of all, treat it as investment capital. Be prepared to have a risk. Now, overall, the trajectory of Bitcoin and Ethereum has been up as a long-term trend, but it's a volatile up and down movement. Overall, the movement is up. Each time it drops to a low, it's higher than the previous low, and so on. So you have to be able to weather those ups and downs. So the safest way is, first of all, choose an exchange that you've investigated, one that has secure wallets in which to hold your crypto funds and your rupees, one that practices KYC and AML standards of the highest standard, and is willing to answer any questions that you have about security on their website or in person. At ZebPay, you can talk directly to me or to anybody else, and we'll answer you on social media. Any questions you have. Our security, we're proud of it, and we're confident of it. And so choose an exchange that practices good security practices, and also make sure that you are prepared for the ups and downs of what is still a volatile market. Don't really try to gamble on the price or guess what the ups and downs are going to be. Day trading, yes, people do it. I think more people lose money in the long run day trading than when I used to be a good day trader, but I just got tired of it. Instead, the best way is what we call rupee cost averaging. Just buy a little bit every day or every week, and don't worry so much about the price, and just keep doing that for the next few years and hold it for 10 years and see where it is. That way you'll get the best average price that you can get. And instead of worrying about volatility, you make volatility your friend by getting the best average price. And then in 10 or 20 years, you may have transformed your financial situation. It's doing this kind of small, regular SIP-like savings plan.
Right. Many thanks, Vikram Rangala, for explaining us the checks and balances, of course, the entire nomenclature of Bitcoins and virtual currencies and how it will run. Many thanks, Sharan Nair, for taking us and, of course, acquainting us as to how the best sides of it and, of course, the challenging aspects of it. Well, that's it in this edition of Discussion today. Stay tuned for more. Keep watching RSTV. Goodbye.